Welcome to the SwimSwam podcast. I'm your host, Coleman Hodges, and joining me today is Jay Friend, head coach of the Missoula Aquatic Club. Jay, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Coach in Missoula, Montana, which, Montana perhaps maybe not known for its swimming prowess, but I'm excited to get into it and talk to you about swimming in Montana. I want to start things off by getting to know you a little bit. Tell me about your swimming background. I read that you were an NAIA national champion in 2010 and 11 at Fresno Pacific University. Take me through a little bit about your background in swimming and aquatics.
Yeah, I grew up in Southern California in the Palm Springs area, and we had a pool in our backyard. And as my mom would say, they had trouble keeping me out of it. I'd just be playing in the backyard, and somehow I'd end up in the pool. Learned to swim pretty quickly just because I was in the pool all the time. My older sisters, they both swam. And so the three of us were in there, or the whole family was in there just swimming around. And so I think basically as soon as I was old enough, they had me go out and join the swim team in town, and it just kind of stuck. I didn't swim year round initially. I just swam when it was warm enough to swim, which in Palm Springs should be all the time, but for me was not. I took the winters off, but yeah, and it just kind of stuck. And being able to chase my older sisters through their swimming careers, so I got to watch them both swim in high school and then swim in college, and so that kind of to me predetermined my destiny, which was I want to swim in college. That was the goal, and figuring out what that looked like as I went along. I didn't start taking swimming seriously in the sense of like having a really great practice attendance or doing doubles really until later on in high school, when I'd already had some kind of levels of success, in the high school program. And but then I started taking more seriously and realized, like, if I want to swim in college, I better figure out how to do it right. And so eventually I put it all together. And got to go swim at Fresno Pacific. They were an NAIA school when I was there. They're Division II now, and and that was a rad experience. I really loved it. It was such a great fit for me. Small team, small school. My grandparents lived about 20 minutes down the road, so I was away from home, not too far, but I was also still near family, which I think was good for my personal development too. Still a lot of at least me personally, it's still a lot of personal growth happening at that age too. So, and my first year in the program was the second year of the program. And I think they'd been fifth. The men's team had been fifth at nationals in their first year. And we came in, I don't really remember if, our the coach at the time was Coach Peter Richardson, is now at Arizona, but I don't know if he had any explicit goals or told us like, hey, I want to, be a national title contender or something like that. But my freshman year there, we were national runner up as a team, which was really, really cool. I didn't make a single second swim. I didn't have a great freshman year. It was adjusting to college life, adjusting to training, all that. And so I think I might have won a best time in one event at nationals, but I didn't score a single point for the team.
What did you?
And I'm a breaststroke IAMer, so I did 100 breast, 200 breast, 4 IM. And but it was such a cool experience for me going from in high school where I didn't have a big team, club team or high school team. Both, my club team by my senior year only had, I think, 3 or 4 people in the senior group, and my high school team, my freshman year had 4 guys on it. And I think we grew that to maybe 8 or 12 guys my senior year. But so being on very small teams that obviously didn't perform well as teams because we were so small, going to this team where I was, the bottom of the barrel, and being part of something that was so much bigger than me was such a cool experience and a lot of cool growth, and really motivated me to train hard, get a lot better, and hopefully, my goal was like, I need to contribute. Like, I'm coming here, coaches expecting things from me. Like, that's why they recruited me to come swim here, was to contribute. And I didn't feel like I did that my freshman year. And, I ended up having a great sophomore year, dropped tons of time in all my events, scored in all 3 events at nationals, was able to swim on some morning relays, and be part of the team national championship, which was really cool. And then going back to back in junior year was awesome. And then, a little bit of a bummer. We went all in senior year, hoping to get the three-peat, but then losing the meet by 6 points. Yeah, it was a super fun meet. We were all, the guys team was all in. That was the year, like, our girls were slated, the women's team was slated to win. And so we were like behind them, because we were a combined program. And so we trained did the same sets, trained same lanes every day, day in, day out. And so we were excited, like, they had gone like, 4th, 3rd, 2nd. And so this was the year, right, that they were going to win. And they won considerably. I mean, I think that going into the last day of the meet, they had kind of sealed it up. Mm-hmm. And we were in a tight battle. We were in a really close battle. It was back and forth all meet.
With what school?
With Oklahoma Baptist.
Okay.
Yeah, OBU. Mm-hmm. And and it was just, the energy was off the charts. We were just going, and I don't know how it played out, but we were a team that, there was like this California bond where, like, Concordia was like, we want you guys to win. Like, we want California to take the title. And so the energy was just, it was an electric atmosphere. And going into that last relay, we had a 1-point lead and needed to win the relay, right? Lose the relay, we lost the meet. And so all coming out of the last relay was pretty cool. I mean, it's a bummer to walk away, but not winning that meet. But I think that is part of the team culture that I love there too, was like, every guy on the team was like, it was me. I could have placed one place higher in one event. I could have done that. It's like everybody felt like this collective responsibility of, the individual responsibility of, I could have done better. It was on me, but everyone felt that it wasn't on one person. And I think we all knew that too, but we're all just kind of like, what could I have done to make the difference? You don't want to walk away with regrets, but I think that, most of us have come to realize, like, that's what made those 4 years, those 5 years, surrounding kind of those title runs that we made super special, was just that everybody on the team, on the guys team and the girls and the women's team we're all in. We were all, fighting for the same thing. And that kind of culture, that kind of feel on the team is just something that in my coaching career, I've been trying to create and foster and build, because it was just the coolest experience in my life.
So that's some really good backstory, and certainly a good plug for swimming in college.
Yeah.
NAIA, D3, D2, D1, whatever it is, find a good match, and that team culture, that you find a lot in high school and college sports, doesn't always happen a lot of other places.
Yeah. And then that's what I love about swimming as a sport. And then, the landscape is changing every day, and especially now. But like, if you want to swim in college, there's a place for you. Like, it doesn't matter where you were and where you came out. I think I had a couple of senior sectional level cuts coming out of high school. Like, I was pretty good locally, but like, even just within Southern California, I was, not great. I had a handful of sectional cuts. I could do breaststroke and I could put together an IM because I was a breaststroker, but
Mhm.
But I wanted to swim in college, and that's what I loved is NAI was that experience for me. I got the opportunity to swim in college, got the opportunity to go to a national championship meet, swim, have some tapered swims in March, and get a couple of rings. And so that's something that I just love about the sport.
Absolutely. They're, yeah, I think that's why people are so devastated, rightly so, obviously, when you see teams getting cut recently is that, that's one more opportunity that could house 40 to 60 athletes and give them, four of the best years of their lives.
Yeah, that's been brutal to watch. It's just swimming, especially men's swimming, being on the chopping block a lot is just it's tough, because I'm like so grateful for my opportunity. It shaped who I am as a person. It made me choose to be a swim coach as a career, and yeah, and having that opportunity, being limited more and more so is it's been a tough news story to follow this spring and summer.
Absolutely. But so let's get into let's get back to you.
Yeah.
Uh, so you finish up your career with two national titles, as you said. And did you know coming out of college that you is coaching that what you wanted to do?
I I had kind of played with the idea in high school because I had some great coaches. My high school coach I really admired. I'm sure I gave him a really hard time as a high school boy, but what I really admired, the time and energy he put into making sure they had a great program. And I had a couple of great club coaches in high school too. That both of them, I think, it really brought my interest into coaching as a way to give back to the sport and continue to engage in a community that's given me so much. And in college, I got away from that a little bit. I had dreams of, going on to doing some kind of career in whatever. I ended up being a communications major, and for a while, I was interested in like, I'd like to work for like some big corporation and be part of their branding, like be part of their messaging. Like that's the kind of communication I was interested in college. But what ended up happening was, I met my wife while I was in college, and she graduated the year ahead of me, and she got a job on the beach in California, and moved there right after she graduated. And then 2 weeks after I graduated, the next year, we got married and moved. I moved over there, and so for a while, I was just like, I just need to make money. It doesn't matter what it is. And I didn't really think about swim coaching. It was just like whatever's available. And so, held a couple of odd jobs as anyone does right out of college, did some car sales and stuff like that. And then I found a job as a swim instructor at a private swim pool. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, this is something that I can do. I did some, like kind of off the book swim lessons and stuff through college to make money during summers. And so I have some foundational knowledge here, and it's a cool opportunity, to work at a private pool and have that kind of stuff scheduled. And so I did that. And then they had like a pre-competitive team, had like 6 or 7 kids on it that were swimming 2 hours a week, an hour a day, twice a week. And so, the owner and the manager kind of asked if I'd be interested in running that in addition to the lessons. I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I was just like, all right, let's modify sets that I did in high school or that I remember from doing as an age group swimmer and see if we can do like a swim practice. And so I started to do that and started to try and push more and more kids who were competent in, swimming lengths of the pool into that pre-competitive program and grew it in numbers. And that was like a really cool experience. And I thought about like, maybe I want to, go approach one of the local clubs and start coaching with them. But it just never really panned out. And I think I wanted to have some good loyalty to the swim lessons program and not do a little bit of both. Because sometimes there's some conflict there between swim lessons and swim teams. And so, yeah, I did that for the years while we lived on the coast. And then my wife's brother lived here in Missoula, and we came out to visit. We're like, hey, we'd love to come visit there. Both her and I were in love with the idea of like living in the mountains or living in the forest. She grew up in Fresno, California. I grew up in Palm Springs, California, like dry, hot places that aren't traditionally seen as beautiful places. I think we both see the beauty of our own hometowns, but and so we're like, let's go explore. And we spent I think just like a long weekend, 3.5 days, 4 days up here visiting. And we fell in love and with the city, with the state, with the mountains. And we got back home to the beach. It wasn't like we're living in a bad place. We're living 10 minutes from the beach. And we got back home and we're like, let's move. Like, let's just drop everything and move there. Like, what do we have to lose? We're both kind of just, she was a sales rep. It wasn't like a dead end job, but it wasn't like a job that you're in love with and committed to. And I was just, I was teaching swim lessons, working 30 hours a week at a swimming pool, doing lifeguard and doing lessons, doing the pre-team. And we're like, we've nothing that's tying us here. And we really love it. And so like, that was the beginning of August, we got home and set that intention. And then by the end of October, we had committed to move out to Missoula.
Okay.
And I remember like, we're both just like looking for jobs, and we're like, if one of us can find even just like a kind of good job, that will be it. Like, even if you can find a full-time job, even if it's minimum wage, but it's full-time, like we're all in. And I found the listing for an assistant coach at Missoula Aquatic Club. And, my brother-in-law, who was my college swim coach, Peter, he was like telling me, he's like, hey, I'm recruiting a girl from there. They're a good team. Dave Burkhoff's their head coach. And I was like, well, that's rad. I was like, that's a really awesome opportunity. And it's like, for me to do something that I like, which is coach swimming. I've started to feel more confident in it. I like it, and get the opportunity to do it on like an actual team. And so I applied for the job, and I told them, I was like, hey, I don't know what my timeline is. Like, we're just randomly looking to move here. And they were like, we're cool. Like we're pretty staffed right now, and we want someone with a good swimming background to come in and coach. And I did some video interviews with Dave and some of the board members, and they're like, on your timeline, like, because we were kind of looking 3 to 6 months. We didn't know where we're looking at moving. And then we're just like, let's just go. Let's just, even though we're part-time swim coach, coaching, 6 hours a week or whatever, like, let's just go. Like, we want to live there. Let's just make the commitment. Let's just jump in. And so we did. And she went and told her boss and gave notice, and her boss was like, can you work remote? And so we're like, oh, man, like, it just lined up, right? It's just one of those situations that lined up for us. And so we ended up here, and that's when I was like, so I started coaching. And when I first got into Missoula, I was coaching our silver group, which is kind of like our second age group. And that was really fun. It was like, I loved coaching that age of kids. And that was the age of kids that I typically had on like my pre-competitive team. It was like 8-ish to 12, just a fun kind of rowdy bunch of kids. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, right when I got in, I was like, I just want to soak up all the knowledge I can, everything I can from Dave, but all the other coaches on staff, and get to know as much as I can about age group coaching as possible. And I kind of saw that for myself, was like, I like age group coaching. I like this age group. Mm-hmm. And I want to be an age group coach. And I think that Dave saw my desire to learn, and just, like being a total swim nerd in terms of like, I'm keeping track of every major college meet in the country. I'm watching all these conference swim meets. I'm watching live streaming nationals, USA, the Pro Series, all that kind of stuff. and constantly coming in and being like, oh my gosh, did you see what so and with Dave is having these conversations? Oh my gosh, did you see what so and so just did this meet? Oh my gosh, did you see this? And I think he started to realize like that I had some potential and some invested interest in the sport as a whole, in growing myself as a coach, learning as much as I could. And so he started taking me into the senior group. And so for a year and a half or so, I did split duties where I was coaching as much as I could with Dave in the senior group, and still coaching those age group kids. And I remember like within the first couple of weeks of coaching the senior group, Dave, but at that time, both his kids were on the senior group, and he was like, they're yours. He's, you could tell like it was, they needed to hear another voice. He needed to, it's just, I'm sure it's just a challenge coaching your own kid. I, obviously no idea what that's like, but so so that was like kind of a fun experience, and getting to coach those kids and figuring out along the way, like, what am I supposed to do? And I remember asking Dave, like, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to coach this age group of kids? How do you plan workouts? How do you plan a season? How do you plan a week? Not just a season. How do you plan a week? And his advice I always thought was great, because it was I felt like never like intentional or like serious advice. He was just like, we can't mess him up that bad. That was his advice to me. And I was like, how do you write a workout? He's like, well, you really can't mess him up that bad. And I was like, okay, I guess. He's like, just write a workout that you feel like you want them to do, and it'll probably be fine. And I was like, all right, so, sounds good. And so that's, I ended up coaching a lot of time in senior group. And I remember like having discussions with my wife, but like, I was like, this is still kind of it. Like I was, again, trying to do some odd stuff here and there. But I was just a part-time swim coach, and sure, I was getting more hours and being able to go to meets with the kids and stuff like that. But I was like, I'm going to, teaching was something that was interesting to me. So I was like, I want to go back to school, get my master's of education, and get in the classroom. And that's kind of I felt like it was a great job that paired where I can continue to do swim coaching, be able to do both, as something where I could continue to be a lifelong swim coach. And so I, applied to the University of Montana and got in the master's program. And I was prepping myself. This was summer of 2016. I was prepping myself to start that master's of education program. And then Dave decided that he wanted to take a step back. He didn't want to be head coach anymore. He still wanted to stick around and coach the kids and help out where he was needed. But it was just too much, trying to run his law practice and be a head coach. And he was ready to, take a step back from that. And I remember, kind of getting the notice from the board that Dave had, submitted his, that he was going to be done after juniors in 2016, summer juniors in 2016. And I remember the board president being like, we want you, we like you. We feel like you've had a good relationship with these kids. And I was like, are you sure? Like I've been a swim coach, even if you count my pre-competitive team experience, for 3 years. It's like, that's it. It's like, you want me to come lead a club team? I was like, I have a lot of respect for what head club swim coaches do. It's a lot of work. And they're like, we feel like you have a good relationship, athletes across the board, like in kind of every group. And
how big is Missoula Aquatic?
So we tend to hover between 100 and 120.
Okay.
So, not a huge team, but certainly big for our area.
Yep.
And I just remember thinking like, this is, and so, and, they interviewed, the board interviewed myself, who our age group 1 coach, who's now my age group head coach. And then another coach she'd been on the she'd been on the coaching the team the longest out of all of us. And it fell to me. I think both of them were trying to figure out, if that was their priority. And I was like, I'm ready to take the risk and try. And that was kind of a lesson that I learned. I'd always been, obviously afraid of failing. But one of the lessons I learned when I first moved to Montana was like, dude, what you fail, what's the worst thing that happens, right? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? It's probably not going to be ruining lives. And so it's okay to fail and get up and try again. Yeah. So I took the job, and now here I am 4 years later, we're starting. So
so that's a pretty cool story. I would not have guessed that's how you ended up in Missoula.
Yeah.
Pretty neat. So, you've had 4 years as the head coach at Missoula Aquatic Club now. Again, I know this club because of the Burkhoffs and Catherine Burkhoff's success that she's had, or that she had, swimming for y'all. So, over these 4 years, tell me a little bit about the philosophy that you've developed. How do you plan a season now? How do you plan a week? How do you write a workout?
Yeah. So I remember initially, because, a lot of how I coach is informed by my college coach, Peter Richardson. I took a lot of kind of the modeling of how you interact with your athletes from him. I always thought he just did such a great job building relationships with athletes. And I just thought that was so important. That was such an important piece of getting kids to swim fast, especially, in a place where maybe we have limited pool time. We can't get as much time as certainly I would like to run a high level senior team. Limited resources. It's difficult. It's very difficult to travel to meets. Our closest travel meet is 2 hours away, in great weather, and shave taper meets. Shave taper meets are almost always out of state. Like they're a flight to somewhere.
Where's the closest travel meet?
I guess now I'd say is Polson, which is only an hour away. They have a great pool. But typically it's like a state championship level meet's going to be in Butte, which is, an hour 45 to 2 hours away from us, or Helena, which is about the same.
Okay.
And then usually our summer state championship meets are in Bozeman, which is 3 hours away. And we like to travel out. I'm good friends with the head coach at Billings Aquatic Club, Sean. And so we like to travel out. We did a dual meet last year there, which was super fun. It's a good 5 hours away to travel. So it's hard to get engagement, to get kids and families to say, I'm going to travel 5 hours for a 1-day meet.
Yeah.
For a 1-day dual meet, I'm going to travel 5 hours. We got 45 kids to travel out to that, which I thought was just a super, super cool thing. But to me, like, getting these kids involved in the sport, engaged in sport, was all about building relationships with them. And then, the technical side of the sport, I've always been super interested in that kind of stuff. And it was hard working with Dave on that, because he'd just been around the sport for so long that, he's not necessarily the kind of guy like I am, where he's going to write everything out, have these charts, color coordinated and all that kind of stuff. He's like, this is what the kids need to work on this month, and this is what I'm going to do for it today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, all right, 7 weeks out of a meet needs to look like this. 5 weeks out of a meet needs to look like this. 3 weeks out of our taper meet needs to look like this. And it was just like, I was like, okay. And it was like learning by feel for someone who just naturally understood the sport so well, naturally understood the stroke so well. He could just take a look at the kids and warm up and be like, this ain't it, erase the workout and write a new one up, because just by watching the kids strokes and warm up, he knew what he'd planned wasn't going to be successful, or what he'd planned was going to be successful.
Mhm.
And so that was like, it was a challenging experience for me, because I was like trying to read these cues that I just didn't have the experience as a coach, or really even as an athlete, to read, and then I'm starting to coach athletes, especially early on with Dave, that are, young in high school and significantly better, and going to meets at levels that I had only dreamed of in my swimming career. And so it was like, how do I get these kids physically ready for a junior national meet, or like a 5-6 day world championship trial meet or national level meet? And how do I get them mentally and emotionally ready for those kinds of things? And so it was super helpful to, um, in 2017, Catherine, she just missed the national junior team, but she made I was the first or second year, I think they did the world top 100 team. And at that time, the world top 100 team was like, it was just the kids really who missed the gap. It was just the girls who, because they take the top, if you're ranked in the top 75 in the world on the national junior team,
Mhm.
25 to 100 don't make it. Guys, it's top 100 in the world, being 18 under. And she was like 83rd or 84th or something like that in 2017, or 100 back.
Okay.
And, but so she'd made the narrow window. And so that was super helpful to be able to go to the national team coaches seminar and like, be like, what happens, listen to Urbanacek talk about, training philosophies, listen to, I mean, there's so many people that talked about that first one. It's hard for me to remember, but, listening to, all these incredible, high level club and college coaches talk about season planning, prepping athletes, what you're doing week to week. Oh, Bruce Gemmell was a huge one talking about that. He did a lot of senior planning and talking about how he structures his workouts for his high school kids, and trying to prioritize afternoon time if you can, because they perform better in the afternoon.
Mhm.
Um, and so getting all that, and then coming to terms with myself, like, as like, I'm a planner, I need to have it planned out, because if I don't have it planned out, I'm not going to be able to make the adjustments on the fly that I need to make. But to me, having an in detail plan allows me to be more flexible when I need to, because it's like, okay, I can bounce from this to this if we need to, if this doesn't work. And so that took, my first year of coaching was like, it was Dave style, where I was like, month to month, just trying to figure out, like, this month we need to work on this month we need to work on this, and what does each day look like, and how do they play off that? And then after that, after I started, I went to as many, not just the, obviously getting invited to the national coaches seminar was huge, but going to as many camps, clinics, seminars, as much of that as I could, to learn as much as possible. Going to the regional clinics that USA Swimming put on was super helpful, because those guys, Mark Hesse, Scott Colby would come on and they'd be like, here's a season planning form. Like, and here's how we do it. And I'm like, awesome. Like, that's a great resource. And then I got the opportunity to represent our LSC at the first lead summit in 2018, I think 2017, 2018. And that was a great opportunity, because like, that one helped me realize, like, I need to make sure that my actions as a coach are in line with what I think my core values are. Because if I'm not executing there, I'm going to have trouble building relationships, connecting with athletes. And you can do all the season planning, you can do all of the, the color work that you want. Um, but if you're not kind of messaging, right, going back to what I was interested in college, if the messaging that I'm putting out isn't reflected in my coaching practice, whether it's my season planning or how I'm building relationships with athletes, then it doesn't matter what I do or how much I do. Because my one of the things I think about is why we're doing something is, almost more important than what and how we're doing it, and making sure the kids always know why we're doing something.
Hmm. So let's get down to some fun details. What is a favorite set of yours that you've come to really enjoy over the years, or do you even repeat sets?
Yeah, I'll repeat sets. We'll have a few favorites that we'll sprinkle in or maybe modify depending on, what I want to get out of that set.
Mm.
A classic, obviously 3100s red. I think a big chunk of club and college coaches all over the country do that one all the time. I like to make sure that when I'm doing that one, that it's my kids are prepared for it. They know it's coming. It's not going to be a surprise. Like they know it's coming. And you could do that set 100 different ways. Sometimes we'll do it straight up. Sometimes we'll, try and chop it up or mix in different distances to achieve it. But like with that said, it's one of my favorites because especially in the last 3 years or so, I feel like every time we do it, the senior group's prepared for it. They're mentally engaged and they're ready to get up and throw down on what I think it can be a tremendously difficult set. Putting in, it's super straightforward. It's not like anything like sometimes I'll tell kids that our sets are getting spicy. It's not a spicy set. This is a straightforward do the work, because the work is what's going to get you better sometimes. And sometimes the work isn't physical. Sometimes the work is mentally engaging in all 3100. Sometimes the work is mentally engaging and making sure you're hitting 5 to 7 dolphin kicks off every wall in
Mm.
3100s red. Or sometimes it's mentally engaging in just not quitting that day, just not mentally giving up on yourself midway through the set. And so that's one that we will repeat a lot. And we have some others that we'll repeat, but I do try and vary things as much as possible. I want our sets to be, sometimes we will just do boring work. I think just last week we just did 10 200s. Not a thriller, but sometimes you got to get the work done. But I do try and keep it mixed up, and keep our days mixed up as much as possible too. So it's not going to be a lot of like, we did 10 200s yesterday, so we're doing 2100s today. Although I think I did both those sets last week. So, that's one of mine. This past year or so, maybe a little bit longer, I've gotten more and more interested in trying to develop kind of that initial like lactic style speed and write sets specifically for that. So that's been fun. I've connected, through the recruiting processes with my athletes, I've gotten to know some of the college coaches around the country, which has been fun. And one that I feel like I really resonate with is Bobby Ginturo he's at Wilmington now. Mm-hmm. And so like, I remember like I text him back and forth and be like, hey, like I'm writing this set to try and hit that 6 to 20 second max effort energy zone. And he'd come back maybe with like, oh, well, this is what I did with my kids today. And I'm like, okay, my kids aren't doing that. But like, okay, I see what you're getting at. I'm going to take those pieces and plug it in. So doing a lot of like dead start stuff, doing a lot of, he's one that turned me on to like, like do a lot of like drag socks, do a lot of that resistance stuff, but do it with fins on. One, it's going to help protect the kids from injury a little bit better. But two, like a lot of times you can get them pretty close to what maybe their actual race pace is if they're doing fins with the drag socks over the top. And so they're doing resisted work at race speed. And so like you're training that muscle memory really, really specifically. And so, I like to we'll do a set where we'll do like, it's just like 10 seconds all out flutter kick on the wall, flip, max out underwater, whatever. We focus on hitting race underwaters. I'm not trying to push every kid to 15 meters underwater, but like, what do you do in a race right now? What is your goal? And those are the two numbers that we're working with. And so doing 10 seconds kick on the wall, do your race underwater, and then maybe max out on 1 cycle max breakout or 2 cycle max breakout. And then work our way up and really trying to work in that specific explosive 6 to 20 second max energy zone. And so that, I think like last year, I really started to put a lot of that in. And I like it, and it's fun. The kids, at least on my team, they like to swim fast. They like to get up and race, and it's a fun atmosphere to coach too. It's I'm not. There's nothing against 6 500s or whatever, but it's a little bit harder to engage the coaching staff to get them hyped up, for 6 500s or 3 1000s or whatever, than when you're doing that kind of explosive or speed work. So
Yeah. So how big is that senior group?
I mean, it ranges. Since we're a small team, and sometimes we'll have a big, like 2019 graduating class was 12 kids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so it was a little bit smaller of a crew this year, and this year I have one in 2020.
Oh, okay.
And I'm getting, that my incoming ninth graders, because we try and keep it pretty specifically to our high schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
We like them to socialize together, and we have enough pool time and space to be able to kind of customize it to our range of skill levels. But like this year, I think we have like 7 or 8 new incoming ninth graders who are kind of prepping to get ready and make that transition into our top group. And so, I'd say it ranges anywhere between 20 and 30. This year, obviously, everything's a little bit different. It's a little bit funky. We don't really even have that set up right now. Right now, we're running 3 groups, just our team colors. We have our black group, which is mainly our older kids. We have our green group, which is kind of like that age group, and then we have our gray group, which is ranges from kids transitioning who can do 4 legal strokes, race hundreds of each stroke and that kind of stuff, all the way down to kids who are working on the fundamentals of, like, can you do a streamline on your back for a 25?
Right.
So that's been, it's been a little bit different this summer, and we're still, figuring it out week by week, what's going to happen next.
Yeah. So to close out our conversation here, what is your plan for the next few weeks? School is kind of starting to to become a thing on the forefront of everyone's mind, whether it's going to be in person or online, however that works. Just for the near future, because obviously things are changing on a daily basis. What's in just a couple, briefly, what are you thinking moving forward for the next few weeks?
Yeah, so we have a few different school districts that kind of our kids are in, and mostly everyone's starting school August 26th, so 2 weeks from today. And right now, the main, where most of our kids come out, Missoula County Public School District, they're planning on doing some blended learning. And so they're going to have, like, half the kids come in Monday, Wednesday, half the kids come in Tuesday, Thursday, and then doing online for the other half. And their schedule's a little bit different too. So they're doing, like, kind of truncated school days to make sure they can clean facilities, clean buses and stuff like that. And so, like, actually our high schoolers won't start school until 10 a.m. On, at least when they're in this first part of the school year. So, the plan moving forward is this is our 10th week back in the water, and the first 8 weeks we're kind of like, set the tone, let's rebuild some foundations, get familiar with the water again, get familiar with how our bodies feel swimming. And then these last 2 weeks, we've expanded our practice time. So we've gone from like 50 minutes a group to now our top group's getting, I think, like 10 hours a week. Our age group's getting 7. And then we have our younger group getting 4 hours a week or 3 hours a week. And we're probably going to move forward with that, just as the kids are going to figure out how to adjust to going back to school. Some of them aren't, they have the option to kind of do all online school. And so as they kind of navigate that and figure out how that's going to fit, we're just going to kind of continue moving forward. right now we're at our outdoor pool and we're good there for about another month. But once October comes, the weather turns and it turns pretty quickly. And so we'll need to head inside, where it's a vast difference. Right now we're running 10 short course lanes. And so it's easy to get kids in and keep things socially distant and get some good workouts in. Our indoor pool is 7 lanes and it's at the university. And so we're a little bit dependent on, the university's doing in-person learning. And so, if the university's open, we're there and we're swimming. If not, we'll figure it out and see what happens. So we're hoping, rest of August and September, keeping things, where they are now, and, maybe see if we can do, it's fun to see kids swim fast all over the country, see if we can do some kind of time trial and see what our kids have looked like over the last 10, 14 weeks or so. But yeah, we're just keep trucking along, focusing on fundamentals, building some road capacity.
Oh, awesome. Jay, thank you so much for your time and sharing some of your insights, some of your coaching philosophy, and some of your history with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.